Hi, everybody. Welcome to the week 3 edition of the walkthrough with me, Jamie Hoyle, and my guest, Jeff Hartman from the Steel Curtain Network on the Fans First Sports Network, our parent network. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I can't believe you showed the clip of 1994's AFC Championship game. That's like a freaking gut punch every time I see it. I was a very young fan at the time, and that was like one of my favorite teams ever. And I still can't believe Stan Humphries freaking did that. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. It's 2024. We're over it. We're over it.
Are you sure?
No, not really.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, we got our asses kicked by the 49ers, and
That's
we
true.
still haven't recovered from that. So, what went around, went around came around, I guess.
There you go. Very good. Very good.
So we're here to talk about the Chargers and the Steelers Week 3 matchup. We've got
Yeah.
a pair of 2-0 teams, both of whom want to stop the run the football, hopefully not have to throw the ball a whole heck of a lot, and get after the opposing quarterback. Is kind of they're kind of mirror images of each other right now in terms of how they
Yes.
want to win games. So I guess the question is going to come down to who does it better, right? This has been the Steelers' modus operandi for winning football games for forever, it seems like,
Yes.
and this is relatively new for the Chargers. So what are the Steelers doing really well right now to help Justin Fields be successful in the role that they want him to fill as their starting quarterback?
It's a great question. Steeler fans don't want to hear this, but Justin Fields is executing the game plan. You go back to week 1 in Atlanta. They're on the road. It's kind of a home environment. Hell, Atlanta had to use a silent count. There were so many Steeler fans down there in Mercedes-Benz. And Justin Fields is like, look, you just need to make enough plays. The defense do their thing. And he did that. He did that, especially in the second half. The offense kind of saw a resurgence. And then last week, week 2, again on the road in Denver, tough place to play. And for a lot of different reasons, you all know that. And so they go to Denver, and it's like, look, we have a lead now. Bo Nix is not going to bring this team back in the fourth quarter with 2 touchdowns against our defense. So just don't F it up. Just don't mess it up. Let's not turn it over. And they went super conservative. We were calling it the prevent offense. And that's kind of what they did. And he's executed those plans to perfection. Like, what have been the knocks on Justin Fields since he's been in the league? Turns the ball over too much, doesn't necessarily read the field well. And so those 2 things, they've worked really hard on it. The Steelers have had 0 turnovers this entire season through 2 games, which I think it's a pretty good achievement, to believe it or not. And he is reading the field, but they're helping him out with simple reads, cutting the field in half, doing things like that. So the Steelers are helping him out, but he's also executing the game plan. What is that game plan going to be against the Chargers? Man, if you're trying to just run, I feel like you're just going to be bashing your head against the wall. And and this is going to be a question back to you does either of these coordinators try and throw a curveball and come out throwing the ball when everyone thinks, you look at the Chargers as number 2, the best rushing offense in the league. I think the Steelers are like the top 5. Does either team come out throwing it instead of trying to run with the anticipation of the other team loading the box? I don't think the Steelers do, but with Justin Herbert, they might, I guess.
They might. I think the only hesitation with that is the Steelers' pass rush, right?
True.
You've got Highsmith and you've got Watt and you've got Hayward, and asking Herbert to come out passing. I mean, he's certainly capable of doing it. It's not like he's physically limited and can't see the field. He's not, he's not Bryce Young. So he's
Had to
certainly
go there.
capable of coming out and making those throws and doing those things, right? But
Yeah.
I just don't think it's how they want to win. And so I think they're going to stick with their identity, which they've gone to great lengths to establish in the first 2 weeks. They're going to run Gus between the tackles. They're going to try to get Dobbins outside, try to get some big splash plays in the running game with Dobbins running off tackle and running some of that power and duo and gap that they've been running so well this year. And then I think they're going to hope that sets up some play action and see if they can take advantage of the Steelers down the field when they're not expecting it. But I would expect them to come out running early.
What's really interesting is, you look at all the Baltimore ties that the Chargers now have on their coaching staff and on their roster. if there's a team that's acclimated to that style, it's the Steelers. I mean, they face Greg Roman twice a year for I don't know how many years he was the OC in Baltimore. They know Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins very well. This is going to be a really interesting matchup. And if the Steelers, let's say they do come out and stop the run, they're only allowing 76 and a half yards a game, which is fifth best in the league on the defensive side. If they force Herbert into third and longs, I'm really curious about that Joe Alt, TJ Watt matchup on that side because Joe Alt, right tackle, first round draft pick, I believe, out of Notre Dame. He seems to be playing really well, getting acclimated. What do you think about that matchup? Because that's something that I was bookmarking. Like this could be interesting if it gets to that point, which it might not.
What's interesting is he's had a couple pretty solid matchups the first 2 weeks. He was lined up primarily against Crosby in week 1.
Yep.
Saw a lot of Clowney last week, and he shut both of them down for the most part each of the last 2 weeks, and he just seems to be getting better. Now, Watt is, in my opinion anyway, he's better than Clowney, considerably better than Clowney.
I would hope.
And I think in terms of Crosby, Crosby's, he's certainly a top 10 edge rusher.
Yeah.
Is he top 5? He's somewhere in that range, possibly. One of the better edge rushers in the league, and Alt shut him down to the point that they had to move him to the left side against Rashawn Slater.
Wow.
So I think it'll be a fun matchup for sure. Alt's using his length really well. He uses his feet really well. And he just seems to be getting progressively more comfortable. So they might have to. Do the Steelers move Watt around? Do you ever see him play inside? He's just on the right side all the time.
They'll do the 3 outside linebacker look from time to time and maybe get him on the inside, but he's never rushing from the inside linebacker spot. And he hasn't played the right side since his rookie year when James Harrison was still on the roster in 2017. Like once he went to the left side, that's where he's the most comfortable. And that's where he, really does his damage. It'll be interesting. TJ Watt is a tactician in many ways. And this isn't to cut on Clowney or Crosby or anyone like that. I will be really interested to see how he does in quarters 3 and 4 against Watt after Watt's gone against him for a half and he sets stuff up and he does things. And it's like, okay, I know this is the first time I'm doing my speed rush. He's probably going to sniff it out, but it's going to set up the inside spin in the second half. And how's the rookie going to handle that? That's like kind of the chess match within the game that I just find absolutely fascinating. Yeah, so this is an intriguing matchup for me, but because everyone thinks on paper it's just best on best, run the ball, stop the run. Who's going to win? I don't know. It's going to be a fun watch at 1:00.
Yeah. Do you think the Steelers will be inclined to kind of take the handcuffs off of Fields and open things up a little bit?
I think at some point you have to for a myriad of reasons. If you're the Steelers, you need to see what this guy can do because whether Russell Wilson eventually is the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers sometime this year, he's also a 35, 36-year-old quarterback. Like there's not much of a future left there. And Justin Fields is 10 years younger. And so if Justin Fields turns out to be the next quarterback, well, he's going to be a free agent after this year. So you got to kind of cut him loose and let him be him. And that's the one thing I have seen, especially last week in Denver. There were some plays where he could have tucked the ball and run, and he chose to stay back and throw, and it wasn't always successful. And I wonder if it's him trying to, I hate to say like prove a point, but I almost feel like sometimes they're like, look, you can still throw the ball. And this happened to Steeler faithful that I mentioned like the 94 teams and you're merging into, everyone remembers Cordell Stewart. Mm-hmm. And when Cordell Stewart switched from slash to quarterback Cordell, there were times where it almost felt like he didn't want to run because he wanted to prove he could throw the ball. Like, we're at the stage where it's like, screw that. Like, just get yardage. I'm watching Monday Night Football and Jalen Hurts is running the ball and he's running the ball. I want to see Justin Fields do that because when you have that type of edge with personnel, you might have a real light, they might go 4 wide. And so now all of a sudden the Chargers have to go light on their side and go into their dime. Well, they back off and he might have a lot of running space, utilize that. And it doesn't always have to be a design run, but I think that they are going to start to take the handcuffs off him, not treat him with kid gloves so much in terms of how they play call and things like that. You have seen him taking shots downfield. Unfortunately, the majority of them have been negated by penalty. The Steelers have been a highly penalized football team this season, coming off a 10 penalty game in Denver. So Yeah, I could see them doing that. I could see them coming out and saying, "We're actually gonna put the ball in the air a little bit, and, we'll see how the Chargers react. We'll see if it might open up the run, use the pass to open the run." I mean, that's kinda counterintuitive to some people, but I could see the Steelers doing that.
Interesting. Yeah, I think one thing you can look out for with the Chargers is you might see some read option with Herbert. They ran a little bit of it last week and had some success. I think you could see that maybe on third and short, third and medium, maybe see it in the red zone. Give him an opportunity to read the field and tuck it and run with it on occasion. They haven't done a lot of that with him in years past. It was something I thought Kellen Moore would do more of last year, but they really didn't. And they kind of sprinkled it in last week and had some success with it. So it'll be interesting to see if they expand that part of the playbook and ask Justin to run the ball a little bit more.
What is Herbert? I know Herbert got banged up a little bit last week. What was that injury? Did they ever say? He was in the
Uh,
blue. I just saw something reported like he went to the blue medical tent. I just didn't know what it was.
he went in the blue medical tent, and they were speculating that he was being evaluated for a concussion, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
But he came right back in the game.
Got it.
So I don't, whatever it was, it obviously wasn't that big of a deal. I don't even know if it'll be on the injury
Right.
report this week.
No, that's good. I did have a question about when people think about the Chargers and the wide receiver core, that they lost some household names. Who did they fill with those spots? I mean, you could talk about the players that left, but who did they get? Who are the receivers that Justin Herbert's throwing to that Steeler fans need to know about?
So obviously they took Lad McConkey early in the second
Right.
round, and he in week one he was kind of Herbert's go-to guy. I think he had like 5 catches for 56 yards, and he had a late touchdown to ice the game. Um, uh, Obviously, last year they took Quentin Johnston. He's coming off of his best game as a pro last week. He had 5 catches, caught 2 touchdowns, made a couple good like kind of physical catches that we're not used to seeing him make. Um, the guy that we all thought would kind of be the go-to guy in terms of volume was Joshua Palmer, and he hasn't really done much. He's had a couple targets in the first few games. I think he might have 1 or 2 catches at the most. He had a drop in the end zone in week one against the Raiders. Those are kind of their top three. They went out and signed DJ Chark, but he's on the IR right now. Um, they just elevated Simi Fihoko from the practice squad. He's more of a special teamer, but you might see him in the slot in some situations. Darius Davis is their star kick returner. He and their wide receiver 5 basically.
Yeah.
And then you've got Brendan Rice, Jerry's son, is their wide receiver 6 right now.
Okay.
So
So
that's
who's wide receiver 1? I mean, you brought up a couple names. Like, do they have a bona fide number 1, or is it just kind of like by committee?
I think it's by committee, and I think it's kind of matchup dependent. They were looking, like I said, they were looking at Ladd a lot in week one, and he had some big catches to help move the chains. I think as the season evolves, you're going to see Ladd start to get some like bubble screens and tunnel screens and smoke screens and things like that. And he'll get some short yardage, volume type opportunities to catch and try to create after the catch. Um, Palmer is kind of their physical contested catch guy. He's been pretty productive for them for the last 2 years, but he just hasn't shown up yet this year. And they're really wanting Quentin Johnston to take that next step, kind of be the downfield threat. They throw him underneath at times. They're looking for him to create big plays down the field when they want to stretch the field.
That's interesting because Joey Porter Jr. has been following the team's top receiving threat every week. And that even goes back to his rookie season last year. Towards the end of the season, he was doing that. So in week one, he went up against Drake London down in Atlanta, held him to 2 catches, I think 15 yards. Last week, it was Cortland Sutton in Denver. I think he had 1 catch for 26 yards. He's been doing a very good job of shutting down the team's top threat. I'll be very interested to see who they have him up against and who the Steelers view as that wide receiver number 1 and the biggest threat in the pass game. So that'll be something to keep an eye on for sure.
My guess is it'll probably either be Palmer or Johnston. You're going to see McConkey in the slot a lot more.
Okay. Yeah.
So it'll be, Palmer is really their X receiver. Johnston's more of their Z. He might play a little bit of slot. So it'll probably be one of those two guys,
Sure.
with McConkey in the slot more often than not.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think that, the defense, I want to talk about the defense of the Chargers a little bit. And What did they do best? I mean, I saw that they had 4 takeaways, or they're +4, I think, on the turnover ratio, turnover differential, last I checked. What are they doing really well? Who are some players that Steeler fans should know about, I guess?
Well, obviously up front, they've got Joey Bosa and
Yep.
Khalil Mack, who are both still playing at a high level. Actually, their edge group in general is one that you should pay attention to. You've got Bosa, you've got Mack. They signed Bud Dupree, former Steeler,
Oh, that's
as
right.
a free agent. They have Tuli Tuipulotu as their draft pick last year, who's kind of working his way up the depth chart. I think he had 5.5 or 6 sacks last year and is a really good run defender. So that's probably their best and deepest position room, so to speak, on the defense. But really, they've been playing well at all levels. They're getting a lot of really good play out of Puna Ford in the middle of their defense. Uh, uh, Tito Agbania is also playing really well in the middle of the defense. They like to use Morgan Fox as an interior pass rusher on 3rd and long. They're getting really good play out of Denzel Perriman and Dion Henley. They're starting linebackers right now. And their secondary has been phenomenal. Christian Fulton came over from the Titans. He's one of the highest rated corners in the league right now. He was rated, I think PFF rated him right under 80 for last week against the Panthers. He really hasn't given up much of anything. And they're all playing fast and free, and they're rallying to the football. There's not a lot of extra thought. They're not having to spend a lot of time processing. They're playing aggressive. And one of the things that this defense does, they love to do, and I'm sure you'll see it this week, 2nd and long, 3rd and long, and obvious passing situations, they're coming. They're blitzing. And they love the slot blitz. You can
Okay.
see the slot come off the edge, through the B gap, through the A gap. They come from all different angles. They'll send 2. So that's something that they do really well. They just kind of move that blitzer around and bring him from different angles, and they'll run a lot of stunts and twists up front too. So they're really aggressive in obvious passing situations, and they're looking to get to and affect the quarterback, and hopefully, obviously, force a turnover, which they've been doing really well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's gonna be
How
fun to
about
look
how
at
about the
that too.
Steelers? Who should we look out for besides Watt and the defensive front on the Steelers defense?
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers' defense is really good. I predicted them, if they stay healthy, to be a top 5 unit in the league this year. They've added more playmakers than they already had, so they have playmakers now at every level, which is something they haven't always had to been able to say. So the front of, you've got Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, household names at this point in the NFL. But watch out for a guy like Keanu Benton, 2nd-round draft pick out of Wisconsin. He's a nose tackle slash D end in the 3-4 scheme. He can really cause headaches for the interior offensive line. But then when you go to the second level, they have Landon Roberts. They got Patrick Queen from Baltimore in free agency, so he's getting acclimated, but he looked more comfortable last week than he did in week 1. They also drafted Peyton Wilson out of NC State, and he's been used way more than anyone thought he would as a rookie, especially against really athletic tight ends. He's even covered some slot a little bit, using him in sub packages, and it's smart. He's super athletic, super fast, sideline to sideline player. And then you go into the secondary, and I mentioned Joey Porter Jr. already. They got Dante Jackson from Carolina and the Deontay Johnson trade in the offseason. He's done extremely well. They pick up Deshaun Elliott, the safety, who's already been making big plays, whether it's tackle for losses, already has a pick on the year. Oh, and by the way, they also have Minka Fitzpatrick. So, yeah, there really is layers to this defense. And if there is a weakness, it is slot cornerback. If they can get multiple and they can get Beanie Bishop, who's an undrafted rookie free agent out of West Virginia, that's got to be their target. Like, that's got to be the guy. Antonio Brown used to say that's the candy bar. If there's a candy bar on this defense, it's Beanie Bishop. So he's played well, and they're easing him into it. But getting the Steelers in their sub packages, getting them light, as I said earlier, when referring to getting multiple wide receivers, that's probably where you're going to do your damage against the Steelers defense. But they've been doing it. They've been going about it different. You brought up how the Chargers love to blitz on obvious passing situations. The Steelers in 2 weeks have not blitzed a lot. They are more of we're going to drop in coverage because we're going to make it difficult. And then we're going to hope that our front 4 or our 5 that we're sending are going to get home because the quarterback has to hold the ball longer. And it's been successful. So it's going to be interesting to see if they change that up. We're all expecting more blitzes, but we haven't seen it yet. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on.
I have a feeling we probably see more of that this week. The Chargers' interior offensive line is a little shaky.
Okay.
They're introducing Bradley Bozeman as the center. He just came in this year. Zion Johnson is playing better, but still struggling a little bit. They just moved Trey Pipkins from right tackle to right guard. They've had some communication issues in the middle of that offensive line at times, particularly in week one. Um, so I wouldn't be surprised to see the Steelers try to stress the interior of that offensive line in obvious passing situations.
Keep your eye on some stunts. The Steelers have been running more interior stunts as well. So if they want to get TJ Watt off of Joe Alt, don't be shocked if they have that the inside, getting him rushing on the inside in that stunt formation, especially on the interior. If there's communication issues, well, then you could have TJ Watt screaming up the middle right in Justin Herbert's face.
Yeah, I don't want to see that.
I didn't think
It
so.
doesn't make me feel good.
Now, but what is your all's take on the new head coach? I mean, quite the difference from Brandon Staley, who was there prior. I mean, it seems like a breath of fresh air from the outside. What do y'all think from the inside?
Oh, it's definitely a breath of fresh air. It's a completely different culture. I mean, the way that Harbaugh has kind of cut out some of the selfishness and the lack of discipline, and really has seems to have everybody pulling in the same direction in such a short time without really having his guys on the field, is pretty impressive. Because especially on the defense, you look at the defense and it hasn't changed that much. You know, they lost Michael Davis to free agency and they brought in Christian Fulton. The linebacker group has changed, but the defensive line group hasn't changed that much. The safeties haven't changed, and everybody's pulling in the same direction. The way they're so much more physical, they're tougher. The thing that they've done the last 2 weeks on both sides of the ball is really control the line of scrimmage extremely well. And they have, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. They have battered the Raiders and the Panthers into submission by like middle or end of the third quarter. Those teams are done. I mean, the Raiders were so cooked come the fourth quarter that their only option was to pick a fight. They had no other answers. They were done. They couldn't move the football on offense. They once the Chargers got some of their communication issues figured out on the offensive line, they couldn't get to Herbert. They weren't stopping the run, and the Chargers just kept hammering away at him. It was like that boxing analogy of jab, jab, body blow, bloody blow. Here comes the haymaker. All right, now he's down, and that's what happened with the last 2 weeks. Is they just jabbed away, landed a couple big body shots, landed the haymaker, and they won the game. So, and that's so different from what we're used to with the Chargers. Not just finishing games, but winning by multiple scores and kind of, not kind of, wearing teams down and imposing their will on them.
I think that it's interesting heading into week 3. Both these teams are 2-0, but I think we could both admit that this is going to be the biggest test so far for these teams. You
Oh, for
know,
sure.
I mean, the Raiders, it's a divisional game. Obviously, they go and win in Baltimore last week. No one saw that coming. Carolina is bad. But then you would say Atlanta in week 1. I mean, they were definitely getting acclimated with a lot of changes. Denver, rookie quarterback, and Bo Nix. I think it's safe to say that this is going to be a really good test and probably the best test that both of these teams have faced so far. And it's kind of one of those situations where, I don't have a big beef with the Chargers at all. It's like, may the best man win. This isn't a divisional game for the Steelers where you hate the team that's opposite. I've got a lot of respect. I've always liked Justin Herbert. I always thought he's one of the best young quarterbacks in the league, and he's just always been on a god awful team. No offense, and
No, you're right.
or should I say a horribly run team? Because I mean, Brandon Staley would Charger things up like none other. And so, yeah, I'm excited for this game. I cannot wait to see where does the splash come from. It's going to happen. Both of these teams take the ball away. Is it going to be a strip sack? Is it going to be a fumble, an interception? It's going to come. It's going to happen. It's just who's going to have that big play. That might be the difference in the game.
Yeah, I think it will be. I think it'll come down to who protects the football, which defense gives their offense a short field to get hopefully an easy score, and which team kind of shoots themselves in the foot the least, right?
Yeah.
Plays the cleanest game is a better way to put it. The Chargers have been really disciplined this year. They've been really physical. The mental and physical toughness is just not what I'm used to seeing from them. So I'm still not really sure how to process it, but it's been fun to watch. So, and I think this week is going to be similar. I think it's going to be low scoring, super physical, probably get a little chippy at times, um, and it should be a lot of fun to watch.
Coming to Acrisure Stadium, formerly known as Heinz Field, very difficult place to kick. I'm always curious, what's the place kicking situation look like? Do you got a steady Eddie out there? Or do you have someone that's a little wayward? Because it is a difficult stadium to kick in.
No, Cameron Dicker is one of the better kickers in the league. He's been
Okay.
phenomenal since they brought him in 2 years ago, I think. Just signed a big extension with the team. In fact, he just missed his first extra point of his career last week.
Wow.
So, and he's money. He doesn't miss inside of 50 yards. And through the preseason, he was kicking 55, 56-yard field goals. So he is about as reliable as it gets from pretty much all distances at this point as a kicker.
Yeah. Watch out for that open end zone, though.
Yeah.
It's a tough place to kick, that's for sure.
So what do you think, or what are you hearing the relationship is like between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields? Like, how are they getting along? What is that dynamic like? Because Russell doesn't like playing behind the kid. So how's all that working?
So far, so good. I mean, Justin Fields, everything going back to training camp, even going further back to mini camp OTAs, he's just been like a sponge. I mean, this is a guy that won a Super Bowl, been to two, probably should have won two. And he's just learning everything about how to go about your business, how to handle yourself, both in the media, both in the locker room, how to lead. People say Russell Wilson is cheesy. He is, but at the same time, he is a leader, and people tend to, like, you don't hear a lot of complaints. Like, he was voted a captain in Denver for 2 years. So I don't buy the thought of, well, he was such a horrible teammate. The teammates voted him as a captain. The dude's a Walter Payton Man of the Year. So he's learned a lot from Russell Wilson and the way the Steelers are playing their cards. And I don't know if they're stacking the deck or not because it's not made public. Russell Wilson is not healthy enough to play, is what they keep saying. So there's no quarterback controversy until Wilson is cleared to practice fully for a full week. And Mike Tomlin has already said he is not going to practice fully, at least on Wednesday of this week. So it's looking like Justin Fields is the guy for another week. There's also people that think the Steelers are slow playing their hand to see what they have in Justin Fields. Either way, I don't think it's caused a rift between the two quarterbacks. Justin Fields is obviously unbelievably happy to A, be out of Chicago, and B, get an opportunity to prove that he can start. Russell Wilson is probably chomping at the bit to get back out there, but he also doesn't want to go out there, re-aggravate a calf injury, and then be on the shelf for the rest of the year. So it's an interesting dynamic, but everything we've heard is that these guys are that they're copacetic. I mean, I can't say that they're probably super pumped with the other being there, but it is what it is. And until Russell Wilson is cleared medically, I think this is what we'll have.
Nice. You got anything else for me?
No, I'm excited to ask you some questions on my behind the enemy line segment coming up. But yeah, no, it's like I said, I think this is a great matchup. I think this is a sneaky good game while everyone's talking about other games, like from a national media perspective. This one's not getting a lot of attention, but I think it should. And I think it will after the game when they say, wow, like that was a really good game. I could see it again being low scoring. I could see it being a fourth quarter game coming down to possibly the last possession. You're talking about two really good kickers. You mentioned Dicker. I've got Chris Boswell on the Steelers side, who is probably the most reliable kicker in the AFC right now, with Justin Tucker having his issues out in Baltimore. So it could come down to that, and it'll be interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
All right. Well, let's do a quick prediction. What do you think happens on Sunday?
You want to score? I haven't even seen the spread for this game yet. Do you want just an outlook for how I think it's going to play out?
Just give me an outlook for how it's going to play out.
Okay. I could see the Steelers coming out and saying, we're going to throw the change up. You think we're going to run, but they also have some tight ends that are going to allow them to be very flexible in those heavy packages. And so I expect Pat Freiermuth to get a lot of targets. I think George Pickens is still going to get his because he's that good. I could see the Steelers just trying something different and really testing the boundaries of what Justin Fields is capable of. Defensively, I don't think that the Chargers running game, again, they're very familiar with Greg Roman's system and style and these two running backs. You just have to slow them down. I don't think stopping is the correct word. You just try and slow them down. And if you can get them into like if they get into manageable down and distance, it's going to be a long day for this defense. But if they can get them in obvious passing down situations, then you pin your ears back, try to get after Herbert. I think this is going to be a really close game. Really close game. I could see this being a 21-20 type affair, 24-21, those type of scores. Maybe even not that. That's way too high, actually, now that I think about it. I'd probably say maybe 17-14, 14-10. That could be more indicative of how I see this game playing out. What about you?
No, I think you're right on. I think it's going to come down to, like I said, which defense provides the short fields for easy scores, and which team is able to convert those short fields into touchdowns versus field goals. So I could easily see this being 20-17, 21-18, something along those lines, with whichever team scoring a second or third touchdown being the one that ultimately wins the game.
That's true. Steelers have only scored one this whole season, so there you go.
All right. Well, Jeff, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. I thought this was a really fun conversation, and I'm sure our audience is going to love it. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. So just a reminder, we've got shows lined up all week long. You're going to see Garrett's show, Score More, come out on Wednesday. This show, the walkthrough, comes out on Thursday. We have our mailbag show on Friday, after hours on Sunday, all kinds of lightning round content coming out the rest of the week. So please be sure to like, follow, subscribe on Twitter, on YouTube, all that good stuff. If you haven't already found it, go find the Discord and join that. There's all kinds of good conversations going on there. Thank you, everybody, for your support. And go Chargers. We'll see you next time.